wonderful group. Thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Nora Gredeman, and I'm the event coordinator for the Wright County Republican Party. On the behalf of myself, Dan Schoenhart, our chair, and all the volunteers that are making tonight successful, we want to welcome our online and our in-person audience. So thank you for attending tonight, and we look forward to hearing what the candidates have to say. But tonight is the 2026 Republican Party of Wright County Gubernatorial Debate. Welcome. As always, we want to start in prayer. So I would like to introduce Dale Witherington. He is the founder of Restore Minnesota.
Thank you, Nora. Good evening, everyone. Would you please stand and join me? And the one thing I'm going to ask you to do before we do pray is I'm going to ask you to do one thing. Pull out your cell phones, and unless you're taking notes, turn them off, put them on vibrate, but make them silent, please. Please make them silent. And now, if you would, please join me in prayer. And following the prayer, please stay standing, and we will pledge to the flag. Our Father in heaven, we come to you tonight in the name of your Son, our Savior, the Lord Jesus Christ. Father, we are asking two things of you tonight. First, would you give your thoughts, your heart, and your mind to each of our candidates tonight and help them express clearly your desires for the state of Minnesota. We have many good men and women running for the high office of governor. And Lord, you know how desperately we need a new one and a good one. We need a governor, Lord, who will create a strong leadership team, a strong advisory team, and lead this state back into mental, spiritual, and emotional health and prosperity. You are the one who said, when the righteous rule, the people rejoice, but when the wicked rule, the people groan. And Lord, for the last several weeks, we've been groaning. We have prayed for years that you would reveal the evil, the corruption, and the fraud that's plaguing this state, and you have done so. You have answered that prayer. Now we are asking you to weed it out and replace it with leaders who are men and women after your own heart. We need that kind of governor, Lord. Please show us who in this great group of leaders that person might be. Our second request, Lord, is based on your sovereignty combined with our freedom. We acknowledge you as King of the universe, while also acknowledging that you have given us a lot of leeway in how we operate in this constitutional republic in which you've placed us. Lord, our request is that you move among your people, that you put a stirring in their hearts to engage in their citizenship, and this year, show up. Our history, Lord, is not good in taking responsibility and exercising our constitutional duties by showing up and putting into office people who honor and reverence you as God. Awaken the complacent. Kick into action those who are irresponsible and have abdicated their civic duties. Help us elect men and women who honor you, because we acknowledge it is we, the people, who are responsible for the leaders we choose. So help us, Lord, tonight, especially in gaining a clearer insight into your choice for governor. Help us choose your choice. Help us motivate Minnesotans to take responsibility for our state, take responsibility for the leaders we put into leadership, and show up at the ballot box. And Lord, make the counting of the ballots accurate, true, and correct. It is time, Lord, for us to work with you and our leaders in government to make Minnesota righteous again. So guide us all tonight, O Lord. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen. Would you now please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. You may be seated. And now let me introduce to you our moderator, Mr. Mitch Berg.
All right, I want to get into this nice and quick here, so I'm just going to run through the rules real quick. We got to cut to the chase. One of these people's got to win. We got to do it quick. But we're not going to be doing an intro per se, because there's plenty of places to find out about all these people. So we'll do that. We'll cut right to the chase here. We'll be doing questions in completely random order. 2 minutes responses from each of the candidates. Tina, the timekeeper, will be playing the time. She has an air horn, and she's not afraid to use it. So we'll now there will be responses for anyone who gets name checked. If someone mentions another candidate, the other candidate will get 30 seconds to respond. We will go as long as we can, subject to getting done on time. There will be a final round, a 1-minute special question that'll be a surprise. So with that in mind, and we'll be wrapping up with Dan Schoenhardt here. So with that in mind, I'll do a quick introduction of all the candidates. Please give a warm welcome to Representative Kristen Robbins. Chris Madel, attorney at law. Thank you very much. Speaker of the House, Lisa Damuth. I think the only title I can think of is Sergeant Kendall Qualls. Great to have you. Mike Lindell is with us here tonight. Lieutenant Commander Phil Parrish is here with us tonight. And finally, Dr. Scott Jensen. All right. I'm going to start off with the first question. Everybody gets 2 minutes to respond, and we're going to get through as much as we can here. So, question number 1. The red-blue urban-rural divide in Minnesota is pretty stark. It's almost like 2 different states. Governor Walz used One Minnesota as a slogan once upon a time. We see how well that worked out, didn't we? So, what do you plan to do about the sense of division in this state? How do you bring this broken state together? Going in random order, we'll start with Speaker Damuth.
Thank you. It's good to be with you tonight. When we heard Governor Walz talk about One Minnesota, I think everybody had a little bit of hope. But exactly to that point, that is not what we've seen. I was born in Paynesville, so in greater Minnesota, and when I was 7 years old, we moved to the metro area. The reason we moved was being biracial. Every day of first grade, I was called the N-word. And so my mom made a decision that we would go ahead and we would move to the metro. We lived in South Minneapolis. We lived in a number of the suburbs, and then finishing up in Bloomington, where I graduated from high school. Later, though, as an adult, I was drawn back to central Minnesota, to greater Minnesota, because it has great things to offer. My husband, Nick, and I have lived in the Cold Spring area specifically for almost 27 years. And so I have that unique experience of knowing both greater Minnesota and the great things about it and the metro areas. As governor, I will work to make sure that every area of our state is known for the good things. We have mining in the north. We have agriculture that is so important. We have industry. We have large businesses that have started and been founded here. And we have our small Main Street businesses. So instead of just doing a one-size-fits-all mandates that never work for everyone, I will look at the uniqueness of our state and make sure Minnesota is stronger and better, and everyone in Minnesota can thrive where they're at.
Up next, we will ask the same question of Representative Robbins.
Good evening. I am originally from Crookston. I'm a small town girl with a small business background. My parents owned a funeral home in Crookston, and then my family moved to Upper Michigan when I was growing up, another smaller town, and again, a small business. And that experience really shaped who I am. We had to work together as a family, we had to work hard, and my parents really modeled giving back to our community. And I also have a unique relationship with the northeast of our state, because growing up in the UP, it's very similar to the range. And my cousins all worked in the mines, and my uncle was a Great Lakes captain. So we spent a lot of time in Duluth going to the ports there when he was in port waiting for his taconite load. And so I really feel that now my husband Brent and I have been married 32 years. We've raised our girls in the suburbs. I win every year in a purple district. And I think that really matters. We need to bring the suburbs back. We need greater Minnesota to turn out in large numbers. But what I've found, no matter where I go in the state, people all want the same things. They want good schools, safe communities, and they want the ability to prosper if they work hard. And so I'm not worried about the divide between rural and metro, because at root, Minnesotans want to see each other succeed, and we all succeed by working hard together. And we can pull our state back through these tough times, which we are facing right now, if we have a leader who is going to support law enforcement, if we have a leader who's going to stop the fraud, get the DEI out of schools, make sure that we are doing things that help reduce the taxes and regulatory policy that's driving people out of our state in droves, and instead incentivizing people to come. That's how we're going to unify our state, when everyone can have their opportunity to succeed.
Up next, Phil Parrish.
Relationships. It starts with relationships, building relationships. I'm a little tall for this, so forgive me. We're going to lift this up. I've been out on the ground speaking to people since March of last year, 15,000 miles later, and over 100 individual meetings and group meetings. There's two people that approached me this evening that talked to me about some relationships I've built over the last 10 years, and I'm still very touched, almost in tears, about one of the stories. The reason that's important is because I'm here to report back to you. I'm a Republican because we are a constitutional republic. End of story. There isn't anything else for me to do and say. I am a Republican. But I'm here to tell you that 80% of the Minnesotans I speak to across the state, they don't want a Republican or Democrat label on their head. They don't want us to label them as Democrat or Republican. They want us to listen to them. And then when we listen to them and develop the knowledge, they want us to act on that knowledge. They want to be told the truth. They want to know that I'm going to be there to have their back and actually do something about the knowledge we've gained from those relationships across the state. I'm also here to report back to you all these meetings I've had. The divide is not what the media says it is. It's not there. The majority of Minnesotans are together. And the Twin Cities area is not what you're being told by the press and some of the people that are pundits and always the experts about electability. It's a garbage narrative. The majority of Minnesotans are just like you and me, and they want to be told the truth, and they want that relationship that they can trust.
Next, Scott Jensen.
Thank you. I would mention the person's name, but I don't want to give him 30 seconds extra. But when he mentioned constitutional republic, I had just written that down. Folks, One Minnesota was nothing more than a cheap slogan and virtue signaling. We know that now. We have been the party that from 1975 to 1995, we were proud to be independent Republicans. When we lose the independent part of who we are weaker. Part of the reason that President Trump was so successful was he ran an independent road. We need to focus on the suburban areas and the urban core to do better. We need to talk about what it is to win an election. Quite frankly, there are so many ways that Republicans divide themselves. Our platform sucks. It's over 12 pages long and 5,000 words, and it says we're going to ban gay marriage, and no, we're not. That ship has sailed. It says we're going to have a national sales tax. No, we're not. That's a silly, stupid idea. It says that the Republican Party encourages electronic medical records in my office. No, you shouldn't. Stay out of my medical office. Folks, we can do so much better. President Trump showed us 7 out of 7 swing states. Pay attention. What people want is affordable, accountable government. They want compassion along with competence. They don't want people living in a safety net. That's supposed to be a place that you climb out of to live a better life. People want personal privacy. I know many of you are powerfully passionate about one issue or whatever. But if we don't get real and recognize that there are many folks that we need their vote. We need the votes of atheists and agnostics. We need the votes of common sense Democrats and independents. So if we think that we can preach to the young people and tell them why they should join up with us, they're not hearing that message. It's been more than 25 years since Jesse Ventura got lightning in a bottle. And he did that because he listened. And that's what the gentleman to my left said, but he's not getting 30 extra seconds. Thank you so much for being here. This is about winning more than ever. It's about winning, folks.
Thank you very much. And right on the button, 2 minutes. Excellent. Kendall Qualls.
Yeah, you know what? I love this one because this is our anniversary of our country's 250th anniversary. And I want to put this in an analogy. Just think about this. We've been winning Super Bowls for 250 years. And if we're going to unite us as Minnesotans, we have to look at it from this perspective. You can join the team and be a part of what we're doing and be a part of what we've been doing for the last 250 years, but you got to put on our jersey, not yours. Okay, we have one jersey. We have one rule book. NFL, we got one constitution. We are a nation of laws, or we're not a nation at all. So it's one of those things there with what's the boundaries of what that looks like as far as coming together. But the other part of this is, look, we want prosperity for everyone. Everyone wants to thrive economically, whether you live in greater Minnesota or in the inner part of Minneapolis. Everyone wants to thrive economically, and the Democrats are not allowing that to happen. Number two is crime. That transcends politics. The issue of this, if you're a Democrat in Minneapolis, you've gone to the city council, you've gone to the mayor, you've gone to the chief of police, your car's been stolen twice, your windows have been knocked out twice, you're paying higher insurance, they're gonna want a vote for someone that can bring that common need, a desire for anyone, regardless of their political party. And then lastly, the third one is schools. They want their kids educated. Right now, less than 50% of our kids are being educated, can read at grade level or do math at grade level, but they know their pronouns. Here's what I can tell you some practical sense when I finish up. I've been asked to speak all across the state on this whole DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, and I've been speaking all across the state to say it's a lie. It's a lie, and I'll explain why later in my next segment.
Up next, Chris Maddle.
So I'm from Waseca, Minnesota, and my dad owned a nursing home there, and he was the county chairman of the Waseca Republican Party. He drilled into my brothers and me Barry Goldwater's conscience of a conservative. So when I went to McAllister College, I thought that everybody just thought like we did. I went out on my first date, and I came back to my date's dorm room. She closed the door, and she had a life-size poster of Fidel Castro behind her door. It was at that moment that I realized that not everybody thinks like we do. And this has been a long journey with respect to moving up to Hennepin County and understanding that people come from different walks of life, and that everybody is honestly just trying to get by. I've had to deal in Hennepin County with juries, with clients, with numerous different things. I'm a lawyer. And I've learned over the years that the more you just sit there and listen and understand where people are coming from, the more common bonds you can make. I can tell you that the easiest way to stop doing that is to call the other side names. And this is why Governor Walz referring to half of us as Nazis, referring to law enforcement as the Gestapo, is uniformly not helpful. And I believe that we are doing everything that we can with respect to social media. I couldn't agree more with the Utah governor after Charlie Kirk's assassination when he said that social media in large part is a cancer on office. It divides us over and over and over again. But I really have hope. I have hope that if we put ourselves around the common issues, combating fraud, stronger schools, safer streets, cost of living, these are core issues that we all believe in as Minnesotans. These are core issues that we all believe in taking care of our neighbors. We all want our kids' lives to be better than our own.
All right, Governor Walz, 30 seconds. No, nothing? Okay, well, that leaves Mike Lindell, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, this is the perfect question for me because people have said that how are you going to get the Democrat voters and independents if you're so branded with Donald Trump and people that have Donald Trump syndrome or Trump syndrome. And I'll tell you this, the people that I talk to, my friends in Minneapolis, they're not those people. They're upset right now with the people that have that are protesting, that are blocking their ways to get to schools, to pick up their daughters and their friends. And you go back, except for the last 17 years since God freed me of all my addiction, I was concentrating on Rochester, Minneapolis, and St. Paul, dealing with private entities, your Teen Challenge, Salvation Army, dealing with these welfare programs that need to be looked at, to make sure that they are not just that they that they're workable, but you get the fraud out, but to make sure that the people that, if they do need help, they're getting the help. So I've worked with these Democrats and independents in the inner city for 17 years now, hand to hand, face to face, people in addiction that need places for their education, for their kids, people that need housing, people that need a place to live. So I've lived and breathed it now for 17 years. It's been, I did an event when God freed me of everything. I did an event in, actually it's when I was saved, when I gave my life to Jesus Christ. In the spring of 17, a lady out in the hallway here brought it up. She says, Mike, you know, remember when you spoke at US Bank Stadium in front of 60,000 kids, 60,000 children to talk about Jesus. That's our common thread through it. We have to bring God back to Minnesota. And those kids grew up with me. They grew up with me long before I got into politics with a great company I had built. And I can reach those people and unite us all in one state under God.
All right. We will move on to question 2 now. And the question is this. The Republican Party is broadly considered to be a pretty pro-life party, but there's a purple state where abortion is a part of the state constitution. So how do you plan on approaching the issue of life in this upcoming election? We will start with Kendall Qualls.
Yeah, you know, I state my position hasn't changed at all. I'm a pro-life candidate, and the question is, how do we tactically actually accomplish that objective of addressing abortion to a state that 70% of people want access to it, and including like 30% of Republican women. I've always felt we have to reach the heart, just like you do in your personal faith. It's a heart message, not a legislative message. But number 2 is that it's already been codified in the state law. So basically, what do? How do we reach people that have a different viewpoint? I'm convinced the majority of Minnesotans do not know that we have abortion up to 9 months. And you start there. You start at the most horrific, and you start from an education standpoint. We have to get elected first, and then we address it with Minnesotans and educate them along the way about different options. For example, Sheila and I, we have 5 kids. We adopted one of them. We can't remember which. We love them all the same. But that young lady, when she delivered, she was 13 years old when she delivered. So there are options. It's an education process. Again, we got to meet people where they are, educate them along the way to bring some common sense back to this very personal and delicate issue that we all feel very serious about. But we got to get elected first.
Up next, Chris Mattel.
So the Minnesota Supreme Court case on this is Women of the State versus Gomez. And the geekish part of me says, if you want to look it up, it's volume 542 of the Northwestern Reporter, page 17. But it was in 1995. Chief Justice Sandy Keith wrote the opinion. There's 7 justices on the Minnesota Supreme Court. It was a 5-1 decision. Of that majority, 3 were Democrats, 1 was a Republican, and 1 was an independent. The independent was Purple People leader Alan Page, number 88. Now, that same Supreme Court, 7 justices, 4 appointed by Walz, 3 by Democrats. In that case, the Women of the State versus Gomez, they found under Article 1, Sections 2, 7, and 10 of the Minnesota State Constitution that there was a constitutional right to an abortion. So one of the questions that I would ask, dovetailing onto the previous answer, what can we do to bring people together with respect to the state and with respect to this issue? I watched that debate with J.D. Vance and Governor Walz, and I heard Governor Walz deny that Minnesota did not have abortion up to the day of birth. I encourage everybody here to read Minnesota Statute 145.409, which says the gestational period goes up to the time of birth. There is a statutory right in Minnesota for a woman to choose to have an abortion up to the time of birth. I do not believe that there is any reasonable person in Minnesota that thinks that that is a good idea. That just needs to end. And I know I have a disagreement with respect to whether or not Governor Walz was lying or whether or not he didn't know what he was signing. I think he didn't know what he was signing. Some people think that he was lying. either way, I think that is a reasonable place for us to stop.
Up next, Representative Robbins.
Thank you. He was definitely lying. We had a thorough debate. He was absolutely lying. But I'm also a pro-life candidate, and I think that's an important question of where we all start in our hearts, and that's a question you should ask of all of us. Where do we start? So I am a pro-life candidate, and I have to thread this needle every time in my district. My district is purple. President Trump won my district by 0.4%, and I won by 14 points. And how do you do that in a pro-choice district? Every year, Planned Parenthood mails my district, they door knock my district, and I have these conversations, hard, good conversations at the door every time. And my approach with my constituents is to be very upfront and say I'm pro-life, and also I do carry the statute in my bag. I know that's weird, but people do not believe you that that's what the law says, that there's abortion up till birth. So I actually pull out the statute and I show it to them, and they're like, oh my gosh. And what I find in general with pro-choice people in our communities is that they will say to me, well, I'm personally pro-life, but I want to preserve the right. And so that's something we can work with. And so I say, well, why don't we find a way to work together to reduce the number of abortions? And pro-choice people support that. So I think I can be a leader where we work together with people on both sides in good faith to reduce the number of abortions in Minnesota. And things that were legal under Roe are gone now. We used to have parental notification. We used to have data collection. We used to have the opportunity to see the ultrasound, those kind of things. We could start there. And we used to fund crisis pregnancy centers. We don't do that anymore. So there are ways we can work with people who are pro-choice but want to also reduce the number of abortions, and that's how we win.
Up next, Mike Lindell.
Yeah, I'm definitely pro-life, and I'm not going to change on that. But I will say, as governor, I would educate the people. I think one of the candidates said that most people probably don't even know our laws on our books. That probably 95% don't know. And I would say most of them want common sense. That doesn't even make sense that you would wait that long, if you were going to get an abortion. So I think you start, for me, someone said, well, Mike, you're never going to change it in Minnesota to get rid of it altogether. Well, look what just happened. With God, all things are possible. It happened with the Supreme Court at a time we thought wasn't even possible. So for me, I'm going to always keep that prayer and hope. And as far as, if it's going to hurt getting elected, I'm just going to say straight out, I will try to always get to that end goal eventually, and however long it takes.
Dr. Jensen.
My wife and I, in order to have a family, had to access infertility tools, do basal body temperatures every morning. We've had 6 pregnancies, 3 miscarriages, and for us it was as natural as the air we breathe that we are pro-life. But the labels don't work anymore in Minnesota. Every one of the candidates up here is saying the same thing. We recognized Dovi Gomez in 1995. It's a constitutionally protected right that women have access to abortion. The labels don't work. So I can tell you straightforward, I am absolutely personally pro-life. But I recognize that Minnesota is a pro-choice state. 70% of Minnesotans believe that some access to abortion should be preserved. But almost 70% believe that abortions in the 3rd trimester should not be something that should be done casually. When I think of Jesus stopping the circle of people that wanted to stone this woman to death, he did what we all talk about. Sometimes we're guilty of virtue signaling, but he touched hearts and minds. He didn't fall into the law of the Pharisees or the Sadducees. He said, okay, we'll go ahead and stone her, but let's make sure that the person who casts the first stone is without sin. We need to really be that person. Quite frankly, someone said, we need to preserve the right. I think every one of these candidates here has said at one time or another, in Minnesota, it's settled law. But what's not settled is we can do a far better job of providing affordable birth control and natural family planning. We can fund our pregnancy resource centers. We can streamline adoption, work through the faith-based organizations. They do a very good job. Those are things that we can do. And as a physician, the thought that a parent could be in their bedroom not knowing that their 15-year-old daughter down the hallway might be bleeding to death from a procedure that went awry is just beyond the pale. We need to restore parental rights as a part of this challenge that we all face.
All right, up next, Speaker Damath.
I am pro-life, always have been. I believe that life begins at conception, and I have carried the heartbeat bill. When I think of the issue of abortion, it takes me to the point where I'm a mom. My husband and I have 4 kids. We have 7 grandkids. But at one point early in my life, I was a single mom. And I know how difficult it is to be facing a really hard situation alone. And there were people that came around me. I had fabulous family that came alongside and helped me out. Not every woman in Minnesota or girl in Minnesota has that. But I was on the House floor in 2023 when Democrats in this state expanded our abortion laws, as you've heard from some of the other candidates, to the most extreme. Part of that is they stripped away the funding for pregnancy resource centers or crisis pregnancy centers, such as Cornerstone and others that do excellent work that maybe could support that woman that is facing a really hard time alone. As governor, the first thing I want to do is restore that funding. We tried in 23 and 24. We tried in March of 25 and couldn't get it done. I will restore that funding to our crisis pregnancy centers. But the other thing that we need is we need conservative justices appointed by a conservative governor. We don't have any conservative justices on the Supreme Court. If things are going to change, that is also what we need, is conservative, life-giving, life-approving justices that will do the right thing for all of Minnesota. I have just a couple seconds left, but instead of leaving men out of the conversation, I think men need to take responsibility and not leave a young woman alone.
Finally, Phil Parrish.
So I agreed. We have a law that can't be changed as governor. But what can we do? The taxpayer doesn't have to pay for it, especially when the majority of us don't believe that it's the right thing to do. We do not have to be forced to pay for it. Many of us would much rather pay for education and access to programs and pregnancy options. We have a wonderful program in Faribault that is fully funded by all of our parishioners and volunteers in the area, Pregnancy Options, and it makes a big difference. And how about we talk about family instead of abortion? And how about when you hear the word abortion, you stop buying that bait. Stop taking the bait. Because the word abortion is being bastardized and used in a way that's not natural, especially for a farmer. As a kid, abortion doesn't mean anything to do with what they're doing. They're taking a life. Let's get it straight. And when you're talking to people, we don't have to be angry and upset and malicious with people, that we can ask them to tell the truth. Okay, if this, and this are the cause and the reason for abortion, the need for it, or the taking of a life is the need for it, what legislation have you passed or proposed in the last 30 years that addresses that issue? And I'm serious. Every single one of you ask somebody that promotes abortion, promotes the taking of a life, ask them what legislation has been proposed to take on alleged rape, incest? What legislation has been proposed to take on all the criminals that you've let out of prison and go and do it again? So I get a little bit fired up with this subject because I believe life starts at conception and should end at natural death. I know what actual natural abortion.
Thank you very much. Before we move on to question number 3, I'd just like to recognize any DFL trackers in the house. Show of hands. Nobody? Well, thank you for your service. Question number 3. Perhaps you've all heard Minnesota has a bit of a fraud problem. It's been in all the papers. $10 billion and counting out the window, gone poof. But remembering that Minnesotans do still love their social programs, what specific reforms would you implement in your first year as governor to strengthen oversight, prevent waste, restore public trust in the executive branch and in their social services without undermining the support that a lot of people absolutely are convinced they need in this state. We'll start with Mike Lindell.
Well, thanks. Yeah, this is what I was saying before. I started these about 12 years ago, dealing with these social programs. I've set up an amazing platform. It's almost like a give, send, go, where the private sector gets involved. People want to give out there that have money, but they want to give it to things that they're partial to and that they care about. And we launched it in Detroit about 12 years ago, before like 2015. It's saved, and these are all like considered the welfare programs. I paid all the expenses as the government, so anything that was extra, anything that didn't get covered, and we saved almost 50%. So what I would do in the first year of being governor, first of all, you take out all the fraud, you put them in prison, you get rid of anyone that's not supposed to be here. Then you look at each program individually. Is this program worthy of having it? Does it have an end? You got to have an end. You can't become dependent on it. It's everything that I've already done, and then you plug in this amazing program, which will be the first year with using the private sector. I believe it's going to reduce at least 40 to 50% cost of these welfare programs. I'm not counting the fraud, that's just to lower the cost. And what I'm gonna do with that money is lower taxes, fees, and bring safety back to our communities and our families. This is where that money is going to come from. Everybody can say, well, I'm going to lower your tax and do this. Well, where's it coming from? It's got to come with our biggest problem we have, which are all the welfare programs. I don't care what it is, but I've been there, done it, and I've been working for about 17 years now, like I said before, in Rochester, Minneapolis, and St. Paul, with big entities there, like Teen Challenge, Salvation Army, and Union Gospel. So I have a plug-in system for that. So I'm looking forward to that. That'll happen on day one, the first year it'll be complete.
Everyone is 2 minutes on the button. Y'all should be in radio or something.
I didn't even have to look at you.
Yeah, that's right. Darn, you're good. Phil Parrish.
So any of you that are involved with business, you know the term internal controls. And internal controls, think of it like a tripod. And if you can't maintain internal controls, you're going to be in trouble with the accountant and or the board that oversees this mess. So you need to ask yourself a question. How many people in our state agencies have completely removed internal controls? And then once you ask that question, and it'll easily be transparent, you start firing people. The second thing is, local control needs to be reinstituted. Everything is this God on high with the state of Minnesota. And it needs to be put back to the people in local control, because you are the people that see and hear and understand what's going on in your communities. This grift and thieving machine that has been built for 30 years, I've written on extensively. I am the original whistleblower of the daycare fraud in Minnesota. In 2017, I came off my last set of active duty orders. In 2018, I ran for governor, unsuccessful, even had death threats because Democrats and some Republicans did not want to talk about fraud. I am here to tell you, as one of the people that has researched, identified, named names, named LLCs, pointed out to leadership, both on the military platform and in legislation here in 2017, for a fact that they knew, and nothing was done. And I've been fighting for you for over 10 years. I made a promise to myself and my colleagues back on active duty that I would never let this go. I've met that promise more than enough, and now I want you to give me the chance to act on that promise and end this fraud.
Up next, Speaker Demuth.
I carried my first bill to combat fraud or to end fraud in 2019 as a brand new legislator. I carried that bill, and it said that you had to, if you had a child care center receiving CCAP, you would keep daily attendance records available upon request when inspected by DHS. I couldn't get a hearing on that bill. We were in the minority. I could introduce a bill, but couldn't get a hearing or make that meaningful change. As soon as we took the tie in the House in the 24 election, I established the Fraud Prevention and Agency Oversight Committee to shine a light on the fraud that was happening in Minnesota. Now that it has had national attention, I have been working on this the entire time, But as governor, it would take a change at the top, and that will be an immediate change. It means to have agency commissioners that will be accountable for their agencies and be held accountable for those taxpayer dollars. Our current governor has said that he has fired people. He has fired no commissioner when it comes to fraud. No one should still be working. From there, it's the internal controls that you have in every single agency, every single program that is out there. We have to have those internal controls. The other thing is the government is not the answer for everyone's issue. And so we need to reduce how the governor is trying to be the savior for all of the problems. We have faith communities and community organizations that can help people when they need. But Minnesotans should not be dependent on the government for everything. I visited a local child care center in my area who is doing good work, but yet they are possibly going to be penalized because of the fraudsters that are doing the wrong thing. We need to elevate those that are following the law, doing good work, and make sure fraudsters are undone in the work that they do.
Kendall Qualls is up next.
You know, this fraud problem that we have in our state, underlying issue is lack of leadership, and it's been going on for so long that's now part of the cultural domain in St. Paul. They said it's a cultural problem because it's been going on for so long. Well, we can't fix St. Paul with someone from St. Paul. This is why we need an outsider, a business leader, someone that can come in from the outside and clean things up. My friends, not only have I done this work in the business world, because in the business world, we have to do quarterly reports, quarterly financials. You know where the numbers are each quarter. And this wouldn't last years and years and years in the private sector. It may last 6 months at most. By then, someone's getting indicted. Here's what I can tell you about another thing about our welfare programs here in our state. We have the second most generous welfare payouts in the nation. If you look at the data coming out of the Center of American Experiment, $48,000 a year and growing. Here's the issue we need to have. Immediately what we can do is grandfather the people on it now. Any new enrollees, they get a 5-year maximum benefit. Enough time to get rehab, enough time to get training, all those things. My friends, this is why we need someone from outside. We need a leader. But most important, I'll share this. We won't be able to get any of this done. I'm not just running for governor. I'm running to help us win the Senate. We're 1 seat away. The Democrats have a 1-seat majority. We're tied in the House. It is time to get our own trifecta for the first time since 1969. That's the only way we're going to be able to go on offense and make these changes. If you just get the governor's seat, you can't do enough by the executive orders. We need to pass laws to put it in the books.
As someone from St. Paul, I'm going to take a 30-second rebuttal. No, I'm not. Up next, Scott Jensen.
We're thinking too small. Fraud, if you look it up in the dictionary, is trickery, deceit, or an imposter. That's why if you just cut the head of the snake off, you haven't solved the problem. Putting a liberal Democrat in for Tim Walz is not going to solve the problem. We have layer upon layer. We have a love affair in Minnesota with nonprofits and NGOs. We still don't know if potentially Minnesota dollars found their way over to Eastern Africa and may have even been used to kill American soldiers. We don't know that yet. We've got to think bigger. When it comes to fraud, certainly we should do audits and they should be unannounced. We should examine applications and examine sites of business. We should investigate potential whistleblowers. We should absolutely create a culture where everybody has to own the responsibility for accountability. And we need to unify our efforts. We have to do all those things. We need to use zero-sum budgeting where everybody starts all over again. But the bottom line is there is fraud that isn't just about feeding our children. It's the impressions and the delusions that we live in. NGOs are not our friends. They're not accountable. So let me move on. Tim Walz is a fraud when he says that he doesn't defund police. He has defunded police over and over again in terms of undercutting the work they do, undercutting the respect they have, and telling people to go out and visibly and in other ways oppose what they're doing. Tim Walz is a fraud in more ways than just dollars, and so are many of his colleagues. Keith Ellison has done precious little to stand up for cops who do good work. So I'm going to close with two things. Lisa Dameth did have a bill in 2018 or 19, and it was a good bill. And it was attendance records. Why didn't she bring it back and get that passed when she was Speaker? And Kendall said that he's done audit work in the business world or done reports. I thought that you were in sales. What formal audit experience do you have that would qualify you as an expert in
All right, and there
accounting?
you go. Well, we have a couple of rebuttals here. We'll start with Speaker Dameth.
Thank you. As Speaker of the House this last year, working alongside my Republican colleagues, we added whistleblower protections. We added 2 additional full-time equivalent employees to the Office of Legislative Auditor Department to make sure that they could be doing the investigations on the agencies, and we added additional other provisions to combat fraud. That was in a tie with 67 Republicans and 67 Democrats. That is 1/2 of 1/3 of state government, and we did an excellent job for Minnesota with that.
Kendall
Point of
Call-
order, Mitch. Point of order.
Call-
I asked a specific question. That's how she got 30 extra seconds, and she didn't answer my question.
We'll have other forums for that. Thank you very much. Duly noted. Kendall Qualls, you're up next.
Well, first, I just want to say, hey, Scott, you remind me of that song from the Righteous Brothers, You Lost That Lovin' Feeling. So I'm glad to talk about my resume, Scott. So when you start in sales management, and you have the responsibility for over 200 sales representatives, you know the sales they generate, the expenses that they're allocating, all of that needs to tie up if there's any nefariousness. Also in marketing, it's the same thing on a national level. So this is just basic management 101. This happens all the time, regardless of the scope of the business.
That's going to do it right there. So, up next, Representative Robbins.
Thank you. So I've been chair of the fraud committee for this past year, and I know better than anyone on this stage what the problems are and how Tim Walz has turned a blind eye repeatedly in the face of criminal indictments, Office of Legislative Auditor reports, and whistleblower reports. They have not only turned a blind eye, they shut down early in his administration the criminal investigation unit of the child care fraud so that they stopped actually doing criminal investigations and only did overpayment investigations. It's insane how deep this goes, how broad it is, and we are only at the tip of the iceberg. And as governor, I will stop the fraud. We will have a no fraud, no excuses culture. We will implement and require accountability for internal controls. And we will fire all the current commissioners, all the assistant commissioners, deputy commissioners, and anyone who isn't doing their job. So we will have accountability. And that is an essential part of government. We have lost trust in our government because we have allowed, under Tim Walz, billions of dollars of our taxpayer money to be stolen. And vulnerable citizens are hurt, and our money has been used to buy resorts in Kenya and apartments in Nairobi and a culinary school in Ohio and the Gale Mansion down in Minneapolis. You cannot make this up. And they have allowed this. I used to think, oh, it was failure of internal controls. No, it is willful negligence, and that is what we are dealing with. So we'll have accountability, but I've already been doing it. I called for a full federal audit of DHS back in July. And a little bit belatedly, but now a couple weeks ago, Dr. Oz said he would do the full federal audit. And we've also brought in help from our federal partners at Treasury. They are helping us track the money going out of St. Paul. We have help from the FBI, from the U.S. Attorney's Office. So our leadership in exposing this in Minnesota and knowing where the problems are, my testimony in Congress a couple weeks ago, that is why we are getting all this federal attention here, and I will continue to lead on this and stop the fraud.
And finally, Chris Maddle.
So as a lawyer, I've got 33 years of experience litigating and investigating fraud, including working for the U.S. Department of Justice in Washington, D.C. And the number one thing that you need to do when recognizing a problem with respect to fraud is actually talking about it and realizing it. Our state government, Republicans and Democrats, have done nothing with respect to fraud since 2017 at a minimum. It's just a reality. The United States Attorney's Office has done something and the media have done something. We've done zero. We don't need an inspector general. We don't need to ask the federal government for help on this stuff. The remedy for bad government is not more government. We need to roll up our sleeves and do this ourselves, and it's easy, frankly, to do. We need to have front-end controls. I totally agree with respect to these non-GOs, these non-governmental entities. A lot of them are shell companies. Putting something on the front end, requiring capital expenditures, bonding, insurance, personal liability, putting people on the hook on the front end is important. With respect to when it starts rolling, delaying full reimbursement until you actually do an audit, making sure that the kids actually exist, that they're not officing altogether in one place. Actually doing something on capital growth. If capital growth goes up too quickly, you do another audit. You get out in front of these things. But most importantly, get out and look. There's a gentleman here in the front row with the Leering Center. That's been open since 2018. Nobody's even looked at it. With respect to the CARE 11 report, 7 daycares were just closed. We need to do cross-program data matching. Those 7 daycares that were closed were getting Feeding Our Future money. None of them have been indicted. 2.8 million meals served by those daycares. These are easy things for us to look at a spreadsheet and use the Excel thing and just sort.
All right, that'll bring us on to question number 4. So when I moved here, let's just say in excess of 20 years ago, Minnesota was a pretty affordable place and a great place to move to in a lot of ways, particularly for housing at the time. So what would you do specifically, given that affordability is the hot flavor these days? What would you do to address affordability, particularly for housing in Minnesota? We'll start with Representative Robbins.
So Minnesota is an outlier on everything when it comes to affordability and competitiveness. We are outliers on our personal income tax, our corporate tax, our estate tax, our pensions, our Social Security tax, all of it. And we have to get our taxes under control. So the first plank of affordability for me is capping property taxes, and that will not only limit the growth in property taxes for homeowners and make their lives more affordable, but it will also constrain the growth of government. We did that back in 2014, and it was very effective, and I would continue that policy. I also would look for ways to increase the supply of housing. The problem, I'm an economist, is that we have too much demand, not enough supply. So we have to have policies that encourage supply, and we have to make sure that communities are incented, not mandated, incented to make affordable housing. And we also have to make sure that we are giving first-time homebuyer tax credits, helping young people get into the housing market, and making sure that seniors can stay in their homes as long as possible. If they've been in their home 5 years and they've paid their home off, they shouldn't be priced out of their home because of property taxes. So there's a lot we can do on affordability, but the bigger picture on affordability is how do we get our tax policy competitive, because it's a disaster and Minnesotans can't afford to live here. That's why they're leaving in droves. So there's a lot we can do. Housing is a huge issue, but it's one piece of affordability. We also have to look at energy. We have to look at transportation costs, many other points that are pressure points for families.
Up next, Dr. Jensen.
Housing is critical. And I think one of the things we have to recognize that when I was born in 1954, 50% of 30-year-olds owned their own home. Today, it's less than 10%. What's happened? Rules and regulations in Minnesota are crazy. You can build the same house on the Wisconsin side of the Mississippi River or the Minnesota side of the Mississippi River. And in Minnesota, 2,500 square foot home will be $75,000 to $100,000 more. Same damn house. This is nuts. Our young people are inheriting a country that has a spending problem. We have a $38 trillion deficit we're passing on to the Gen Zs and the millennials because we can't handle dealing with it. As long as we continue to do these inflationary things, you're going to see young people not be able to buy houses. We need to incentivize with tax credits and rebates of interest rates and things like that. We can do those things. But we also need to make certain that young people are being presented with a full menu of options in terms of what they want to do with their lives. We've way oversold college. We should be building Minnesota by the trades. It's carpenters, plumbers, electricians. This is what we need to be doing, and we're not doing it. For those that do go to college, they come strapped with student loans. Why do we let our colleges string students along for 6 years? Why doesn't the college say, you come here 4 years, this is the cost, but you will get a degree. And if you don't, you keep staying here and it's free. Let's put the colleges on the hook. We've got to do a better job of working with young people. The Gen Zs and millennials are absolutely getting screwed. The life that we had, that we got to be introduced into the world, was incredibly different. We don't have enough passion for what the Gen Zs and the millennials are living through.
Up next, Mike Lindell.
I would lower property taxes, and part of that is the reason I found out why our property taxes are going up. They've been using bonds, school bonds, and it's become like a Ponzi scheme. And where we spent now over 29% more on our education, and we went from the top 5 to the bottom third. And they keep funding this by raising your property tax over and over again. And so you have to get right to the root of the problem of why our property tax keep going up. And we are going to get to that, and then we will get them lowered. Another thing I want to lower is sales tax, or get rid of it. Small businesses getting hit with sales tax, you have no reason to go shopping there when you can buy everything online. And we're going to have our malls in our cities where people don't go shopping. You need an incentive to go there in person and buy stuff for a lower price and help these businesses that are paying these high taxes. And you also got to get rid of the regulations. Regulations on our businesses is disgusting. So the costs go up, which means the costs go up for all of us. And the other thing is healthcare. With my company, the healthcare, we've got to get that lowered. Minnesota used to have a good healthcare. We have some of the best affordable healthcare, and it was just a few short years ago, maybe 4 to 8 years ago. And I've watched it in my company just to become one of the worst things where the healthcare costs are so high. So I want to lower property taxes, secure our healthcare, get it lower the sales tax. And if there's enough left over from all those health or those welfare programs, which we're going to look into each and every one of them, take all the savings from there and maybe get rid of our income tax.
Next, Chris Maddle.
So I'm going to break this into kind of 2 categories, affordability and then housing. One of the reasons that I decided to run here is because I just got so frustrated and so fed up with people just talking and not doing. I am just so tired of politicians, and I'll be honest, I am not a great politician with respect to this. Subtlety is not among my gifts. But I am so sick and tired of politicians saying that, oh, I'm here to fight for the middle class, and nothing ever happens with respect to it. I'm just kind of done with it. My idea with respect to affordability, when I see, and I've talked to a number of people that are making choices between housing and healthcare and childcare, because taxes are just a given in Minnesota. Knowing that those taxes in large part are going to fraud, losing their trust in government is simply unacceptable. I want to increase the standard deduction for every Minnesotan to $75,000. This would cover Social Security benefits. So your Social Security benefits would not be taxed under Minnesota state law. I want to cap property taxes for seniors 65 and older, so you're not rebuying your house over and over again as you go into retirement as your property values are increasing. With respect to affordability, totally agree. Gen Z and the millennials really are getting the short end of the hook. I really worry about my 2 daughters, about how they're actually going to be able to afford something. What we're doing in Minnesota, though, I represent a client called Dominion that does affordable housing. The Minnesota Housing Finance Agency has pushed them out of the state. They literally will not do any more business here because it is so unhospitable with respect to business. We need to bring these sorts of places back, marry tax credits with business. This is the one government program that actually works, and we're still pushing these people out. It's absolutely nuts, and we can actually do this, easy fixes.
Up next, Speaker Damath.
I remember when my husband and I bought our first house. It was in Paynesville, and it was about 800 square feet. The payment was just over $200, and I'm not that old. Those small houses are so hard for people to find. We need to make sure that there are all types of houses in our markets in each one of our communities. Each one of our communities is a little bit different, and everybody's going to start at a little bit different area. But the overregulation for building a home here in Minnesota is ridiculous. We can build just as safe of homes as they have in Wisconsin, Iowa, North and South Dakota. than we can here. The regulations in Minnesota price people out of their homes. We need a better supply of homes at all levels, and those are affordable homes with less regulation. Entities like Met Council and others that are putting more pressure on our communities need to change fast. But the affordability issue overall, Minnesota has put too many mandates on businesses, and so when you think of the mandates that are put on, that hits our cities, our counties, our school districts, Main Street businesses, and it pushes the price of everything up. Minnesota can be affordable again if we reduce regulation, if we reduce mandates, let business and our economy thrive, let people stay here, and I have fought to end the tax on Social Security for our seniors my entire time in the legislature. There have been changes, but it is not completely down. I look forward, as your governor, working with a Republican Senate and House to get that done once and for all.
Up next, Phil Parrish.
In this life, we have makers and takers. In Minnesota, we have a very serious problem. Those of us that work and grind and every day, sometimes 10, 12, 16 hours a day. I've worked 2 and 3 jobs most of my life. We're the makers. We have a problem in Minnesota with too many takers. And those takers aren't people in need. Those takers are bureaucrats, state agencies, NGOs, LLCs, using your tax dollars to do everything other than what you were told it was for, while the people in need are still suffering. As governor, my first budget will be a complete reduction of over 33% of the budget will be gone. Many of the agencies of career bureaucrats will find themselves either retiring early or becoming a maker instead of a taker. We can remove the Social Security tax. We can, on day one, with executive order, a mandate on a moratorium on all unfunded mandates. Every single unfunded mandate can be removed. We'll have legislators come back to the table and work out the Social Security, put it into law, work out that all these unfunded mandates are gone, and reduce the size of government by over 33%.
And finally, Kendall Qualls.
Thank God, I've been waiting. All right, guys. Please, I want you to join me in this vision that we have for Minnesota, that I want all of us to explore. Because we can address the affordability part 2 ways. One is economic prosperity, growth, as well as cutting the expenses, cutting taxes. And what does that look like? So number one of the things we would do, we'd open up the Iron Range and allow for a new generation of Minnesotans to have an opportunity. Doesn't require God bless you, doesn't require a college degree, but those jobs are over $100,000. Unless right now we mine less than 10% of the Iron Range. And no country does mining and clean and making sure it's clean at the same time. No one does it better than the United States. Right now we import from China a lot of those minerals. We don't need to do that. I want to open a school of mining and engineering and put it at the University of Minnesota in Duluth for whole new generations of Minnesotans. Number two, lift the moratorium on nuclear power. We need to build the next generation nuclear power plant in our state. We're not going to get there with wind and solar. The third one is, and this is most recent, look, all of these blue state people that have left and moved to Tennessee, Texas, and Florida, there's millions of them. Guess what? The last place you want to be in summer is in Tennessee, Texas, and Florida. I want to make Minnesota the summer destination vacation for America. So those 3 things are what we can do from a government. The rest of it is the regulations, the taxes, and all that. Innovators take care of the rest of that. Government stays out of the way. We make sure that we create an environment for people to invest, to hire more people, all of those things. And my friends, we can't do it with just the governor's seat alone. We got to do it with the Senate and the House.
All right. I'm going to skip ahead to question 6 here for the people in the booth here. So the next question is, Minnesota just rolled out paid family leave. It's pretty much a starter drug for government dependence. Don't shoot me, I'm just the messenger. It's crushing small businesses, including one that I work with, but repealing a state benefit is a little harder than uninstalling a sidewalk. So, what do you plan on doing about paid family leave? We're going to start with Phil Parrish.
So paid family leave was built on a lie. So first thing we're going to do is start telling you the truth. I'm going to deviate, wow. I'm going to deviate from the question. So my answer to the question is, I'm going to start telling people the truth. It was built on a lie, and we will unfund it and remove it. This deviation is this. I've been doing this a long time. I've been talking to all of you a long time. I've been out on the road grinding away at this a long time. I'm building relationships and policies and putting in place policies with statute and precedents. It's a very detailed thing on my website. You can read all about it. But I'm getting a little tired of an individual up here that's built on a house of cards and got lots of pretty things to say at just the right time. That's never the answer of the question. Have you noticed a pattern? There's at least one individual up here that continues to go into not the answer to the question. I'm getting tired of it. And I'm getting tired of the fact that there's this pre-organized, pre-orchestrated love fest for one individual that's not deserving. It's a house of cards that's going to fall apart.
All right, that brings us to Kendall Qualls.
Yeah, I think they should rename it. It's not the paid family leave bill. It's move your business out of Minnesota bill, because that's exactly what it is. My friends, what we have to realize, and it's taken me a while to get there, is that the Democrat Party in our state has been taken over and hijacked by socialists and Marxists. And if you're a socialist Marxist, again, we have to do a lot of education because this is not taught in schools or our universities. You're anti-capitalist, you're anti-American, and you're an atheist. And that's a nice word of saying that you're anti-God. They don't want this profitability and economic robust engine to happen. They just don't. Listen, after years of looking into this, they'll tell you that profits are evil. And it tells you no better example of how evil that their mindset is and what they're doing is by just looking what they did this past Sunday by attacking a Christian church in St. Paul for so-called righteous behavior, their righteous agenda. They've been shoving this down our throats for far too long. It's time to stand up, and this is why I'm in here. I'm not a politician, never wanted to get in politics. I felt like I need to help our state. We haven't won in 20 years. We haven't won the AG race since 1970. This is why we need an outsider from outside of St. Paul to fix St. Paul. And guys, I'm gonna tell you, this issue, this anti-business bill was done deliberately. They don't care if businesses leave. They wanna make it a one-party state, just like California, just like Illinois, and this is our juncture, this is our time to actually turn the channel and to win it and save it for not only our state, but for our country. The whole country is looking at Minnesota right now.
All right, up next, Scott Jensen.
Paid family medical leave, the best way to get rid of it is stop the funding, strangle it. Moving on, atheists are not anti-God. I have many friends that are atheists. They haven't been blessed with faith. They might be on their journey. We need to be careful. Those atheists are oftentimes very loving, neighbor-driven folks. We need to ask ourselves, why did the Paid Family Medical Leave Act happen? And why did it happen the way it happened? Do you remember where it first started being talked about? In Republican circles. And what was being discussed was the need that we needed to be a community that had compassion for moms having babies, for families in distress. But the issue got hijacked. And frankly, it should have been stopped in the House. It got hijacked, and it became something that's now this monster that will continue to gobble up dollars and crush businesses. But nevertheless, we have to take our share of the blame. We had opportunities to lead the conversations on this, and we didn't do it. So what do we do now? Strangle the funding. That's one thing we can do quickly. But we need to win elections. And I know I sound like I'm harping on this, but if we lock in on a single issue and say, here I am, high and mighty, you're just nothing but a virtue signaler. Republicans used to say that we were for things. Now it's just posturing. Identity politics has found its way into the Republican Party. Purity tests. People are righteous about it. I know what's right. No, you don't. We are a constitutional republic, and as such, we need to behave that way. Otherwise, we will lose again in November. Bet on it.
All right. Up next, Representative Robbins.
Thank you. So the paid family leave bill is an absolute disaster, and I was part of the team that was trying to propose an alternative. So we had a Republican alternative that would have been a voluntary insurance product, kind of like disability, where if you didn't already get leave through your employer, you could buy into this insurance product, and your employer could even contribute if they wanted to use it as a competitive advantage. They could say, hey, we'll help pay for your paid leave. That program works well in other states. It's not something we made up out of thin air, and that is where I will go as governor. We will get rid of this huge statewide mandate that's a tax on all our employees, all our businesses, and we will go to the voluntary program. But what's really important about the paid family leave program is not only that it's an enormous tax, an enormous 400-person new bureaucracy, and $800 million of the surplus went to fund the seed money for it. All of that is bad. What's really bad is that it breaks the social contract between the employer and the employee. So all of a sudden, you no longer go to your employer and say, hey, I'm going to have this surgery, or hey, I'm having a baby, or hey, my mom's got cancer, and work it out. Because that's the social fabric that makes our country great. Instead, now you go to the government and you apply online for leave, and the government grants your leave. This breaking down of the employer-employee relationship is the real problem of this bill, and we have got to turn it around, and I will. But I want to point out that Speaker Demuth, as part of this bill at the end of session this year, when she negotiated with Tim Walz, she agreed that members like me don't have to pay the employee tax. Members and our staff, our full amount is picked up by the taxpayers. So we're not even on the hook for it. So it's rules for thee and not for me. And that's wrong, and I'm dropping a bill to make sure members and our staff have to feel the pain of this. Thank you.
Speaker Demuth, you have 30 seconds.
I do have 30 seconds. Negotiating with a tie, 1/2 of 1/3 of state government, was very, very difficult, but it was something that I was able to deliver. The ending of the taxpayer-funded health care on illegal immigrants. We reduced our spending by $5 billion. We protected our non-public education from the cuts that were being proposed by Governor Walz. As far as a paid family leave, we will definitely be looking at as we go forward. Those changes were not able to be done. We did good work in a tie as House Republicans, and I am proud of the work that we did. There is much more to do that I will be doing as governor.
I need walk-off music, don't I?
President Trump just shut down government, but Lisa Demuth didn't.
Fair enough. Chris Medal, you're up.
So
We'll get to it. We're up on time here.
well, I got 1-2 against this guy. No, never mind.
It'll be a free-for-all here, okay?
I'll take care of it on my next time.
Chris Medal, go right ahead.
I couldn't agree more about the idea that it really gets in the way of the social contract between employer and employee. In my business, I have given every woman as much time as she wanted off with respect to maternity leave, and I've never even thought twice about the idea that this person is taking advantage of me. It really offends me when the government thinks that they can come into my business and tell me about my relationship with my employees. It really does. And this is everywhere right now. The fraud that is going to happen on this is going to be astronomical. One thing, though, and let me get on my soapbox on this. Calling the other side names is not going to bring us together. Walz and Fry are doing this right now with respect to immigration. How has that gotten us? Why haven't they just engaged with the other side to come up with priorities and move us forward with respect to things? True leaders do not call the other side names. They work with the other side and get things done. Enough of this political BS. Enough of this stuff going back and forth and trying to incent you and trying to make you go to Twitter and say, oh God, Maddle is totally with us. He hates the other side. We are Minnesotans. One Minnesota was a fraud. We now know that. This person talked about our side being Nazis and being led by the Gestapo. Let's be better than that. We need to be better than that in order to bring in the suburbs, in order to win this election. So please, bring down this temperature. Let's not be calling each other names. Let's bring it a big tent so we win one time in 20 years.
Mike Lindell.
Yes, at my pillow, at my company, and my other companies, if you go out for and you're having a child, you can stay out as long as you want, and also if someone dies that's close to you, I pay you while you're out. You grieve as much as you want, as long as you want. If it's life threatening, they can stay, they get paid while they're out until that becomes, whether it's a family member or themselves, we pay them. But those were my decisions. I was completely blindsided by this 2023, now this new law that's come in with my employees. And I have one that's leaving now, and I'm going, okay, I have to replace him and try and find 20 weeks from now that I have to hire him back. I just found that out too. I'm going, no, you would lose your job. I mean, this is gonna create so many problems. But I want to go back to where it started. Our own party. I mean, whoever let this in, it's all about communication. One of the things I want to tell you when I'm governor, just like our president, he's the most transparent president that ever lived, putting out stuff going, hey, look what they're doing over here. Look what our own party's doing. Look what they're doing. So the people know. That otherwise you end up with all this nonsense stuff that we have to deal with, the most nonsensical laws and policies ever put forth in history. And I also have a social media platform, Lindell TV, and I'm governor. You're going to hear every day, every single day, if there's nonsense like this, that even in the genesis of it, that even thinking about bringing forth, well, then we the people can speak out and say, are you kidding me? We are not doing this. But this will be stopped. As soon as I get in office, I will stop this. This is going to completely ruin small businesses.
And finally, Speaker Damath.
Thank you. I believe the original question was about paid family leave. That's where we're going to go to right now. Paid family leave, though, takes away that recruitment and retention tool that employers used. Good employers always take good care of their employees. What this does is this penalizes the good employers. There are definitely changes that must take place within paid family leave. But I want to talk about the economy. We need to grow business here in the state of Minnesota, and by putting things such as paid family leave or earn sick and safe time that can even be used if you're protesting right now, those are things that drive businesses out of the state of Minnesota, and that has to end. I want to make sure that businesses can start here, they will be able to thrive here, and grow here in the state of Minnesota, such as we've seen over the last years and generations. But I want to remind you why paid family medical leave got passed and a number of other things we've talked about tonight. Paid family medical leave was passed when Democrats were in full control of state government in 2023 and 2024. Because us as Republicans, we lost the governor's race and everything down ballot. I am committed to unifying Republicans so we can get in this race in 2026, win this race, and turn our state back.
All right. So before I go on to the final question, question 8, I just want to say I apologize for not being able to get every single rebuttal in. I love a Donnybrook as much as the next guy, maybe more than some, but we have to get this thing wrapped up in time for Dan Schoenhardt to give his last little bit here before we close at the end of our airtime here. So I'm going to allow, because of what we've already had, I'm going to allow 40 seconds each for this last question. No rebuttals on this one. But the question is, There are 7 great candidates up on this stage here, and we can only run one for governor here this November. Why you? I'll start with Chris Mattel. 40 seconds.
I want to fix things. I don't want to be a politician. If you're looking for somebody from the establishment, you got that. If you're looking for perennial candidates that run and stick to their talking points all over the time, you got that too. I'm not that. I want to stick to my 4 things: combating fraud, safer streets. I have the endorsement in the Minneapolis Police Department Federation. I think we all know, with respect to my representation of Lonergan, I got very good with the cops. I also want to do something with education and cost and affordability. Looks like I'm almost done, but I also want to put in a plug for Mitch and his cover bands.
Brown nosing will get you everywhere, Council. Mike Lindell.
I believe that I will. The reason that, well, first of all, the reason I ran, I want to save the American dream. I've lived it. I went from in the streets of Minneapolis as an addict to building great businesses, and I believe I can fix things. I know I can. I've done it. I've been on my companies have been under the biggest attacks ever. I've got through that. I'm still standing. I've built businesses during that time, even with our big problems with our elections. I built teams of 300,000 people across all 50 states during the times I was attacked. I can secure Minnesota, and also I have the marketing ability to win. You also have to have that to be able to win.
Kendall Qualls.
So many of you know I ran for governor last cycle, and I barely lost to my friend down the aisle. When we lost everything, when lights were off, Republican county affiliates, different candidates around the state, Kendall, will you come and speak at our fundraiser? We need you to come and speak. Kendall, will you help the school board candidate? And we went, my wife and I went all around the state. We stayed involved. When the lights were off, leaders stayed involved, and they helped the team get strong in the off season. So when it's time, when the lights come on, leaders then show up and then reap the rewards of staying engaged, not just when the lights are on only.
And your time is up. Thank you very much. Speaker Damath.
I have a proven record of winning, meaning I broke the Democrat trifecta working with my House colleagues in 2024. We ended the full Democrat control in the state of Minnesota. I have negotiated with Democrats, I have negotiated with Republicans, and have turned out very good things for the state of Minnesota. I am born and raised here. I believe that Minnesota is absolutely worth fighting for. I have had success in the things that we have done, and I will continue working for Minnesota, all of you, and serving our state.
Philip Parrish.
So we're going to start by making sure that all of you know how many people are really working for this endorsement, this win. Peggy Bennett's not up here right now, and she's a candidate. Brad Kohler, Jeff Johnson, Raul Estrada, and Patrick Knight. I am the only candidate, and it's not about a bragging point or sticking one in somebody's face, but I am the only candidate that's been talking for nearly 6 months of bringing 2 of us together as governor and lieutenant governor, and then the rest of the candidates will be part of the cabinet if they want to be.
Scott Jensen.
Your fears needed a voice. When you saw lockdowns taking your businesses down, you saw lock-ins where your frail grandparents were dying lonely deaths 5 years ago, when children were being locked out of school. Your fears needed a voice. They needed a champion, and I was there for you. I put it on the line. 6 times I was investigated by the Board of Medical Practice. I sued Keith Ellison, and we prevailed. I am still suing the Minnesota Board of Medical Practice. I don't have to talk about fighting for you. I have done it. In 2020-22, we had the momentum going, and we knew, it says 26 seconds.
You got 5 seconds left.
Okay. We knew that there was going to be a problem when Roe v. Wade got overturned. 49 out of 50 states saw a red wave become a blue ripple. This time around, we have a chance to win. Thank you.
And finally, Representative Robbins, 40 seconds.
So I'm the best candidate to win because I win in a purple district. President Trump won my district by 0.4%, and I won by 14 points. We need to get rural Minnesota, greater Minnesota, to vote at presidential levels, and we need to plus up our numbers in the suburbs and bring in votes from the urban areas. I've been doing outreach with Latino community, the Vietnamese community. I used to be on the board of a group in the Phillips neighborhood. I have relationships throughout the state that I can draw on to win this thing for all of us. But we also have to have a candidate who doesn't cut bad deals with Tim Walz, and a candidate who doesn't donate to Democrats. We need someone who's a true Republican, who's proven she can win, and who will win for all of us.
Very good. Thank you very much. Well, a big round of applause for all the candidates, please. And I'll now turn this over to Wright County GOP Chair Dan Schoenhardt to wrap things up.
Thank you very much, everyone, for coming out tonight. We have a good crowd in the Overflow Theater also. Thank you very much to the candidates. I think this was a great event. It was great being able to hear some really in-depth answers. Thank you to our moderator and timekeeper, Mitch Berg and Tina Dietrich. And we will be doing a straw poll on our website, www.wrightgop.org. It will be open for the next hour. People will be able to vote. And then the results will be shared at the meet and greet afterwards. If you do not have your meet and greet ticket yet, those will still be available for purchase out as you're exiting the hallway. So again, the website is www.wrightgop.org.
So everybody can vote online too. They don't have to be here.
Correct. Everybody who could listen to this, who bought the live stream or is listening on 1280 The Patriot.
What if they didn't listen? What if they just caught it at the very end so they could vote?
It's online for people.
I believe we'll allow it.
All right. So thank you very much, and enjoy your evening.
Right on time.
Wow.
Oh, beautiful, for heroes proved in liberating strife. Who more than self their country loved,